want to welcome everyone to our Identify and Prioritize Your Savings Goals seminar. My name is Carmel Lewis, and I'm joined today with my colleague, Chris Mann. And we're going to spend some time today going through saving for multiple goals, as well as thinking about planning and being able to achieve those goals. So we'll hop right on in. And you're going to notice for today, we're going to try to make this an interactive experience. So I know it's morning, but I encourage you as we ask questions to please engage with us. So it'll make the presentation go through a lot smoother for us. And another key thing is we want to make sure that you have some great takeaways, so some good strategies, some great tools and tips you'll be able to use as you're thinking about those multiple goals for saving. So today's section, it's going to focus on two main parts. The first one will be saving for multiple goals. So allowing you to be able to identify and pretty much prioritize those different types of savings goals you may have, as well as specific tips on how to save for those specific goals. So whether your goal may be saving for college or for retirement or paying off debt, we're going to be able to dive in really deep and show you some great ways to be able to do that most efficiently and effectively. So it's going to be a lot of great content. So again, please engage with us as we go through, and then if you have questions, things like that, let us know. All right, so when we think about saving for multiple goals, it's really important to be able to hone in and think about really what you're looking for as far as your goals and what to achieve for those. So as you're thinking about what types of goals, whether you have 2, 3, 4, 5, it's also important to think about short-term goals versus long-term goals and being able to classify really what that looks like for you as you're wanting to build out that plan. Again, as we think about short-term goals, whether that's saving for vacation, it's summertime, or getting warm, people are thinking about let's go places, have fun. Versus long-term goals like retirement, which has been a huge topic for this week with financial fitness, we want to be able to know kind of what that will look like over time, and it'll help us in determining how we want to save appropriately for them. So, first interactive piece this morning. So you'll see here we have 7 different pretty common goals. We have paying off debt, building an emergency fund, we have buying a car, saving for a vacation, buying a home, saving for college, and saving for retirement. And what I'm going to ask everyone to do today is just think of one goal that you feel is most important to you. I'm going to give you a moment to do that, and then we're going to just do a quick poll just to kind of fill out the room and see where everyone falls. So think about just one. All right, everyone have theirs? Kind of see some head nods. Okay, all right. All right, so we'll start. So just with a show of hands, what about paying off debt? Is that most important? All right, nice. What about building an emergency fund? Okay, very nice. How about buying a car? Okay, cool. How about saving for a vacation? No one? Okay. I'm not too shocked. What about buying a home? Okay, nice. I just went through that process. Oh my gosh, so I'm glad it's over. How about saving for college? And that's another big one. And then how about saving for retirement? Oh my goodness, yes. We'll see everyone. So I'm not too shocked. And as you noticed, different answers, different feelings for everyone. But I will say kind of a common theme and what we were able to determine even from past seminars and polls, and I'll give you the top 3 we found. Saving for retirement was number 1. So that was around 46% of people feel that is most important. So again, most of the people raised their hand for that one. Number 2 was actually paying off debt. That was about 24% of individuals felt that's another really important goal for them. And then actually tied for third was between building an emergency fund and saving for college, both at 10%. So a lot of you, as you were probably looking at these multiple goals, probably were coming in mind like, oh, these all seem really, really important. And what we're going to focus on again throughout today is making sure that you're able to prioritize and be able to plan through those multiple goals. So one way to do that is asking yourself, why are these goals important? And what we'd like to look at, as you see, there's 4 buckets here, is creating almost like a bucket strategy where you're saying, okay, whether you have 2, 3, 4, or 7 different goals you're looking at, allowing yourself to prioritize and create a bucket gets you thinking about which bucket do I want to fill first. So you start to say, if my priority right now is buying a home, and I know I need a down payment, this is my time frame I'm looking at, you might be more inclined to say, this is going to be my main priority, let me start working on that, while I'm still working on my other goals, but this is going to be the main priority. So this is a great way, as you're thinking about the important goals for you, you can really allow yourself to say, okay, here's my list of goals, here's how much I'll need, and then here's that time horizon I'm looking at. And that's a great way to visualize and be able to commit to those goals as you're thinking about planning for them. So we just touched on this as far as time horizon, but a really important piece with thinking about time horizon is also wanting to think about what type of accounts or investments would you look at for those different types of goals. So for example, if we're thinking about short-term goals, again, whether that's building an emergency fund or planning a vacation, typically you're going to look at savings accounts or accounts that allow for you to invest in money markets, pretty liquid investments where you can easily access those dollars as you need it. Whereas if we think about intermediate goals, maybe that 2 to 5 year time frame, whether that's looking at purchasing a new car or if you're wanting to buy a home, you have a little bit more flexibility as far as your investments, where you could look at mutual funds, maybe looking for some more growth potential, because it's giving you a little longer time horizon to be able to build and grow those dollars. And then lastly, if we think about long-term goals, that's going to give you about 5+ year approach. And with that, there's typically accounts you can use specifically for those. So if we think about long-term goals, whether it's college savings, a lot of people might take advantages of 529 plans. They like the tax advantages, things they can look at there. And similarly with retirement planning, you have your workplace plan. So here at Duke, you have your 403B. Another great avenue to say, okay, great, I have a separate account. I can go ahead, straight from my paycheck, and put money aside. And then even outside of that, if let's say you're maximizing, you're putting in the most you can into your 403B account, and you want to save more for retirement, that's where you could look at IRAs. That's where you can have that ability to say, okay, I now have an additional account to allow for me to save for retirement. And I'm going to pause for a quick second. Is everyone good as far as with pens and being able to write, take notes and all of that, or does anyone need a pen? Okay. So we will grab that. We have pens. So if you need a pen, if you could just raise your hand, and then we'll grab you one. Give me 1 second. I didn't think about paper. I said I didn't think about paper either.
You guys have your phones too. A lot of people have phones.
All right, sorry to pause that, but I just wanted to make sure everyone was good to go. All right. All right, so a quick test of knowledge. We just talked about different types of goals. We talked about time horizons, whether it's short-term, intermediate, or long-term. So you'll see 3 different goal types. So building out an emergency fund. What do we say this typically is going to look like? A short-term, nice. What about buying a home? Intermediate. Awesome. And then process of elimination, we'll say saving for retirement, long-term. Awesome. All right, perfect. So we've spent some time talking about different types of goals, being able to prioritize, determine what's important, but now let's think about funding those goals. And the best way to do that is to have a great plan in place. That's usually going to allow for you to feel like, okay, I know what I want to get to. How am I going to get there? And I'm going to pose the question to the group to say, how many of you follow right now a budget or spending plan? Just raise a hand. All right. So a couple of takeaways. So rather if you raise your hand or not, I would say if you did raise your hand, you have one, great. I will say today what we're hoping you'll be able to get out of this session is to be able to find even some additional tips, strategies, things that you can take away to be able to say, okay, this is what I'm doing now. Maybe I can improve on my planning. And for those of you who don't currently have a plan, I definitely encourage you, please start that, whether it's today, tomorrow, because you'll really find it'll make things a lot easier as you're thinking about day-to-day spending and saving to already have that written out. And if you do it, Pad, if you do Excel, however you want to do it, obviously it'll be your own preference, but really having something in place will really help you from a full planning standpoint. So as we think about saving and spending, we have a little rule of thumb here. So I call it the 50, 15, and 5 rule. So I'll start here with 50. So 50%, we're saying, is recommended that you spend less than 50% of your paycheck on your essential expenses. And so when we think about essential expenses, that could be housing, food, transportation, healthcare. Again, those things you need to live. So think about that as far as kind of money coming in, about 50%, less than that, should go towards the essential. If we are thinking about the 15 here, 15% is the target of your salary that you want to have allocated and saved towards your retirement savings. Now, within this 15%, it's going to include not only your own contributions, but with Duke, if you are eligible for the Duke contributions in your 403B, it can include that as well. So a lot of times people will ask those questions as far as, 15%, am I looking just me personally if I'm getting something from Duke? So you can look at that collectively. And then lastly, 5%. So 5% will be for short-term savings. And I look at that like your emergency fund. So, yes, I'm sorry. Mm-hmm.
Is this recommended from your gross pay?
Mm-hmm. Gross. Mm-hmm. And I'm sorry, I should have mentioned that. So then 5% would be for that emergency fund. So 5% of your paycheck, allocating that towards emergency. Because let's be honest, we all know life happens, You might have an unexpected medical expense or car breaks down. By having that 5%, you're already setting aside, having that bucket, you can call it, you're able to then pull from that account versus pulling from other accounts, other money you have saved for other things. So just some kind of key numbers here. So 50 for your essential, 15% for retirement, and then 5% for short-term savings. All right. So another question here. I'm not going to have you guys raise your hands. I just want you to think about it personally, kind of where you think you fall. So if you were to think about how much you currently spend on your essential expenses, would you say that you spend less than 50%, maybe around 50%, possibly more than 50%, or you're not sure? So I just want you to kind of think about that. And I will say for anyone who falls in the I'm not sure category, this is, again, a great opportunity for you to start thinking about the budgeting, creating that plan, and being aware, because it's going to help you in the long term when we think about these multiple goals you're wanting to save for. Because if you don't know what's going in and out, it's going to be really hard to determine where you can comfortably save and how you can save those dollars. Alrighty, so as we think about tips, strategies, and again, Chris will dive into this a little bit later for those specific goals, but just some things to think about as you're wanting to save more for your goals. The first one, and I know I probably sound like a broken record right now, but creating that budget. That is huge. I always joke, my husband and I, we love to eat out, probably more than most. And one day we were going through our budget, and our bank statements allow us to kind of see like a pie chart where money's going. I'm not going to tell you, what it looked like, but it was pretty bad. We spent so much money eating out. It was like eye-opening. So it really made us think, okay, are there things we can do to change what that would look like, whether it's, meal prepping, thinking about as we're grocery shopping, or maybe bagging a lunch. So that allowed us to then save on that end and then allocate those dollars to other goals. So again, creating that budget, having a really good idea of what's coming in, what's going out, again, for the long haul will help in thinking about your overall savings. The other one is paying off debt. You know, particularly if you have any high interest credit cards, things like that, being able to pay that off will free up dollars that you'll be able to use and again allocate towards other goals. The third one I love, the automate your payments. You almost can think about your goals as like a bill. I mean, we all have bills. We all pay our bills. Hopefully, everyone's paying their bills. But if you think about this as a way to say, okay, you have a goal, it's like another bill, you're just automatically going to be saving towards that goal. And a neat way to do that, if you combine it with the next one, saving or setting up savings accounts, is you can actually say, let's say you have 3 goals. You could set up 3 different accounts, label them, you know, whether it's vacation, college, and retirement, you know, just however you want to list it out. And then you just set up the automatic payments straight from your paycheck, direct deposit, however you want to do it. And it's one less thing you have to proactively do as far as saying, okay, I'm going to write a check into the account, or I'm going to, you know, end of the year, I'll, you know, dump something in there. You can just kind of automate it, again, as you would a bill, especially if you have like auto payment set up. A really great way for you to be able to do more, you know, without doing a lot more as far as work-wise on your end. And then lastly, saving in your workplace plan. So again, here with Duke, you have your 403B, a great opportunity for you to have that dedicated account to save. Duke makes it really easy. You can go right to your Duke at Work portal. You can set up your contributions if you have not already. You can do a set dollar amount, a percentage, and it just goes straight from your paycheck into the account. So again, some really great tips and things to think about if you're not already incorporating these into your day-to-day planning that can make things a lot easier. So another big piece to all of this, as you've created your budget, you have a list of your goals, you're like, man, I'm doing good, I'm saving. The other big piece is going to be to track your progress. Because if you don't know how you're doing, kind of defeats the purpose, you know, so making sure that you're regularly staying on top of, I have this goal set, you know, I have this time horizon, are you on track for that goal, will allow for you to make sure you're staying on track with the goals, and if you're needing to make adjustments, you could look at either shifting some things. So let's say you have a few different goals set up, and you know, you have a short-term goal, an intermediate and long-term. Maybe you feel like, you know what, I have this short-term goal, I really need to get this car, it doesn't look like I'm going to be able to do it, how can I make some changes? By checking the progress of where you are, it might be a simple tweak. It might be simply saying, you know what, maybe I need to bump up how much I'm putting aside here and maybe lessen just for a short period of time how much I'm putting into those other goals. And being able to see where you are, continually monitoring that, will help you in making sure you're staying on track for those. Lastly, for those of you who are already saving, which I hope everyone in the room is, you know, whether it's for retirement, for anything, I want you to think about your current savings progress and kind of how you feel about that. And again, I'm not going to have you raise your hand if you just want to think about it. But if we look at the different categories as far as those of you who may feel very confident about your savings progress, if you feel maybe somewhat, maybe there's a little room for improvement. Maybe you feel just okay, you know, not too great. You don't feel bad, but maybe, again, some opportunities to grow. Or if you're here saying, oh my goodness, please help, like I need all the help I can get, this, again, will help you in determining, again, what you can get from us and here with Fidelity, because there's a lot of great tools and software on our website that can help you in creating out those plans and those savings goals. So I'm encouraging anyone who's not all the way here at the very confident, I just hope you're able to take something away, whether it's, you know, creating out that budget or thinking of different strategies, as well as being able to utilize us. So if you want to set up an appointment, or if you want to call and speak to one of our planners over the phone, as well as if you feel pretty confident in going right online using our Planning and Guidance Center on the Fidelity site, those are all great ways to make sure that you are going to feel more confident as you're planning for those goals. So I am going to pass it on to my colleague Chris, and he's going to dive into, again, thinking about those specific goals and planning for them. Thank you.
Hi, everybody. I see a lot of familiar faces here. So I have notes. I was reviewing this yesterday. For some reason, this seminar that Fidelity sent us didn't have a lot of notes. It just said planning for specific goals and then freelance, I guess. So that's what I did here. But I do want to start, if you guys want to write this down, there's a really good website that goes through that 50, 15, 5. And it's basically you plug in the numbers, right? And it tells you kind of where you're at. So it's the Fidelity website. So all our websites, of course, www.fidelity.com. And there's a / and then savings and spending checkup. I did that yesterday. And it was definitely worth my time to see it. But that's really helpful and reinforces a lot of the things that we're talking about today. So I think I wanted to start this part with a statement that surprised me, that 54% of Americans spend more than they make. So I'll say that again. 54% of Americans spend more than they make. Does that surprise anybody? It didn't surprise me, but it did, right? It's like, how do they do that? And I feel like I'm an expert on this topic because my first 5 years, I started with Fidelity in 1993. You know, when you start having money coming in and you're out of college and you don't know what to do, you make a lot of mistakes. So every mistake that I'll talk about, I've made, probably more than once. But this one I made, but it was very short term, right? Because you figure it out. Oh, I have no money. What can I do? So let me ask you a follow-up question. So how many of those 54% do you guys think have a budget? I'm going to guess 0 because I can't sit down and do a budget and say, okay, yeah, minus $600. That's good. I'm right on track, right? So I don't think that happens. So that's why it's so important to have a budget. And I'll be completely honest with you. For a number of years, like I didn't have a budget. I knew what I could spend, and a lot of you guys are probably like that too. I know what I can spend. I know I can't go out and spend $200 on a dinner, or I know I can't take a trip around. I know that stuff, so I just said no to it. But when you get a budget, it really helps you focus on your goals. It's really important. So that's one thing that really blew me away. My other big theme today, when we're talking about budgets, is credit cards are evil. I'll say it again. Credit cards are evil. You heard that before, and I looked up the definition of evil because I said maybe that's too strong, but I looked it up and said nope. Wicked, credit cards are wicked. Yep. Immoral. I think so. Bad, harmful, or injurious. Yes, all of the above. So people that struggle with their finances struggle with credit cards. There's no doubt about it. So I wrote down a couple numbers. Again, this is not Fidelity stuff. This is Chris's stuff. This trying to fill space on the slide right here. But I think it's really important. How many credit cards does the average American have? What do you guys guess?
3.
8. 3 is a good guess. 8 is scary. But it's not 8. It's not 8. They have 3.7. 3.7. So that's a lot. You guys always go into the store and they try to target, like, would you like to save 10% on your $16? I'm like, yeah, for $1.60, I'm probably not going to do it. But it's a good practice just to say no to those things. A question came up on one of the webinars. Yeah, but I get points. I get American Airline points. It doesn't make sense to get points on your credit card if you're paying interest, because you pay more interest than the ticket will cost. A lot of people don't get that. They don't put 2 and 2 together. Credit cards are bad. I have one credit card, and again, this is just me. You guys, obviously, you guys are all adults, and you know what you're doing. I have one credit card, and I was thinking yesterday, and the same credit card. It's a Fidelity credit card, by the way. Here's the plug: 2% back, cash back. You can go online, fidelity.com, and sign up. It's great. Costs you $0. So that's the card I use, 2% cash back. And by the way, you can direct that money. So at the end of the year, I'm just going to say, like I have $750 every year that they give me back. I can direct that to my 529 for my kids. I can direct that to my IRA if I want to. So it's neat. It doesn't matter what credit card you have, but I have one. And in 30 years, one time I've paid interest. One time in 30 years, which I'm pretty proud of. But that's how I think you should use a credit card. Just, I'm killing credit cards, so hopefully nobody has a spouse that works for a credit card company. But I'm not a big fan. Not a big fan. So the average balance, anybody want to take a guess at that? The average American balance on credit cards? It's higher. It's $12,000. Which just blows my mind. But it's starting to make sense now, right? Because 54% of Americans spend more than they make. How do you do that? You do it on credit, right? Which is a bad idea. I'm gonna mess this up. I just thought about this, but there's last week or 2 weeks ago, there's a study that they polled millennials, and they said, "You guys aren't doing really good at saving. Why is that?" And they said, "Well, social media. I'm on Twitter and my friends in Hawaii, and I'm not. I feel like I have to keep up with them." So that's a big part of it too. So a lot of this is psychological too. All right, credit cards, 3.7. That's the average number that people have. Balance is $12,000. Interest rate, you guys are going to guess this. Yes. All the cards together. Yeah, sorry, not each card. Yeah. I would cry. 17%. Yeah, right now with low interest rates, it's 15.8%. All right. So I'm taking the 15.8%. I'm not done with this example, so please be patient. The interest is $1,896 a year, right? $158 a month, right? I can think of a lot of better things to do with $158. So if I took that, and I'll tell you a little bit about my experience, how I fund my retirement. If I took that $158, I was 25, and I didn't pay that interest, so I kept my credit card balance to zero, till 65, right? Because I've seen people, and I'm surprised people are ready to retire and they say, "Oh, I have $30,000 in credit card debt." Like, really? All right, let's address that. Let's help you with that. So for 40 years, if that 158 goes into your 403B at Duke, you get a 7% return. Historically, the market last 100 years is over 10%. I use 7%. Your balance is $378,508,000. So that's $158. Now, in some cases, Duke's giving you money, or they're giving you the pension, right? In some cases, I'm doing that anyways on my own, right, or more. So if I'm doing, let's see, if I get to a point where I'm doing 300 and I save that credit card money, now I have over $1 million. So this stuff isn't hard, but it is. It's really hard. So a lot of these things, I don't think there's going to be a lot of new things for you guys here. Like, yep, I know I'm supposed to bucket. Yep, I know I'm not supposed to eat out a lot. Like, you guys know this. The challenge is doing it and sticking to it. So I think I have a few ideas. So before I get into specific goals, just on budgets, I just wanted to just talk about, and again, these may have been on the slide, they may not have, but one of the first notes I have is budgeting is hard. It's not easy. If it was easy, everybody would do it, as they say, right? So it's hard, it's a challenge, and you have to police yourself, or if you're married, you have to police your spouse too, which is even harder. Pay yourself first. So this was on all the webinars that we've done. Pay yourself first. I've been taught that 24 years ago when I started at Fidelity. Make sure that, people ask me, should I save in a Roth IRA or should I save through Duke Plan? It's a lot easier. Pay yourself first for it to come right out of your paycheck and do it through the Duke Plan. If you are trying to build an emergency fund, make it automatic. Make it go automatically to your emergency fund so you don't have to think about writing a check. I'm not going to write the check because Belk's has a sale this weekend, which they do, I heard, which I'll probably go to. But But, nope, automatic. You can't stop it, but don't stop it. It's automatic. Saving for a car, house, college, same thing. So pay yourself first. This is something that I think has been lost really on the last 3 generations, really, is deferred gratification. So when people talk about, retiring, I make a joke, I meet with somebody, like, especially a young person, like everybody wants to retire early, nobody has a plan, right? Not nobody, some people do. But I had a person that came in, 51 years old maybe, wanted to retire early before 60. And I'm just like, what's your plan? Like, I don't have a plan, I just want to retire early. And I'm like, okay, there has to be some substance to that, right? And a big part of that is deferred gratification. So I like talking to young people, new graduates, because literally I can change their lives, or we at Fidelity can change people's lives if you do 1 or 2 things. But a big part of that, I say, it's just a big dose of deferred gratification. Don't upgrade your iPhone, every year. Don't buy a brand new car. Don't buy a bigger house than you need. Smart things that leave you money to save. Here's one that's not on the slide that I like a lot. It's tell others about your goals for accountability. So to Carmel's point, if my goal is, hey, let's not eat out, I'm telling my husband or wife, hey, let's not eat out, so that she can, hey, you ate out for lunch, you weren't supposed to. So that kind of accountability, and it can be a spouse, it can be a son, it can be a daughter, an older one that can keep you accountable. It can be a friend, it can be somebody at work, but that actually does help. Hey, how's your budgeting going? You know what, it's not going great, but I have to refocus. Look for ways to cut expenses. Now, this is what I was saying. This is something that I do every year. Every January 1st, like I look at that, for lack of a better word, stupid cable bill, right, that went up when I wasn't watching, and then I have to go back and get it, and I save $50. And then, hey, we don't need all of the, what do you call it on your cell phones? All the web space, whatever it's called. Data, yeah, all the data. We don't need the data, so I can cut there. There's a lot of bills that, like a gym membership that you thought was a good idea, that they have you're still going, you go once a month. It's probably a good idea to cut that. Or now a lot of the services, right, Hulu or Netflix. I'm not really watching my Netflix like I used to. $18 doesn't seem like a lot, but if you add it with the other stuff, redirect it to paying down debt, redirect it to emergency fund, redirect it to college savings or retirement. I mean, those are all good ideas. Like we talked about writing down goals. So put it on your refrigerator, right? If your goal is to pay off $16,000 in debt this year, put it on your refrigerator. That does help. No credit cards. I don't think I have to go much further in that. Pay cash for things. So again, this is kind of something that's lost in really in the last generation. People don't pay cash for anything anymore. I remember my uncle years ago when I was a kid saying, "Yep, you need a new car. Like the wheels are falling off." He's like, "Nope, don't have the cash for it, but I will in a year." And I'm like, "Can't you finance that stuff?" And he wouldn't do it. He would pay cash for it. By the way, you can negotiate a better price for that. And then the last thing, this is deferred gratification too. A need versus want. So if you came to my house, again, 4 kids, 3 teenagers, one, how old is he? 11-year-old. But when they ask for something, they know what my response is going to be, right? Is it a need or a want? If it's a need, we can help you out. If it's a want, yeah, that might go in the budget, right, section. So those are just some things that I have on budgeting that, again, little off topic here, but I think there's some good ideas there. So I wanted to share those with you. So really what we're talking about is, specific goals. So emergency fund. So again, why do you need an emergency fund? Your furnace goes, right? The AC unit, they're not cheap, as you guys know if you've replaced one recently. Like $10,000, $15,000 if you have a decent sized house. They're pretty expensive. ER visit, other emergencies that come up. the car breaks down. So this again, if you have an emergency fund, and we consider an emergency fund 3 to 6 months worth of savings, right? If you're, I always tell nurses and doctors, hey, you're probably more on the 3 side because you have job stability, right? Usually nurses and doctors don't lose their jobs unless they do something wrong, so it's pretty secure. But you want to have that money there so you don't have to tap a credit card, and that gets people behind. I've seen it 1,000 times. Well, why did you have to use the credit card for that expense? Well, I had no other money. Okay, let's track this back. Why didn't you have any money? Well, for the last 15 years, I never thought about saving for an emergency fund, right? So emergency fund's really important. Safe account, right? Historically, again, last 100 years, money market or cash accounts have paid about 3% a year. If you can get 3% a year, as I said before, tell me, because that's a really good rate. I don't think you can get that now, but you can get 2. I know you can get 2. Fidelity, it's 2. Banks are usually a little bit better than us on that side because they can loan the money. So if you're at the credit union, the Duke Credit Union or Bank of America or wherever, you want to keep that in a safe account. No volatility in that, to Carmel's point. That's short-term money. Does that make sense? Anybody have any questions on emergency funds or, frankly, anything that I've said? Yes.
I know savings for retirement is separate and already come out on a check, but personal savings, how and where is the best way to store that or save that so that you won't actually see it or have access to it?
Yeah. So it's so.
What's the thought process? I've heard both.
Yeah. So so saving the emergency fund savings or even another goal. So,
Savings, pretty much emergency.
yeah. So I'll tell you this. What I do is so again, 4 kids. I have 4 529s. I'm going to talk about those in a minute. And I bill pay myself. So my accounts, again, this sounds like a Fidelity plug, but it really isn't. We have to have all our money at Fidelity, but Fidelity gives us everything. And like I have my checking account, my debit card, my credit card, as I told you. Bill pay, everything's free. Not because I'm an employee, just because it's free. So I bill pay myself, or not myself, I bill pay each of the 4 accounts every month. Does that make sense? So it doesn't come directly out of my check like the 401k does for me, but when it hits my account, before I can say, oh, okay, that's there, it's swept out. Does that make sense?
When you say you bill pay and it's somewhere, where is it stored and housed? So you bank with Fidelity?
Yeah. So let's say for a minute, not to confuse anybody, that I don't bank with Fidelity. First Citizens I use.
Okay.
My check comes in at First Citizens, and I know that comes in, I don't know the date of our check. Yeah, you guys are 25th of the month if you monthly pay. I know when yours comes in, I don't know when mine comes in.
Okay.
But the 25th of the month, so I have my 529 bills paid automatically.
That's the college fund.
Yes,
Okay.
on the 26th,
Okay.
because I know it's going to hit on the 25th, so before I can have access to that money, it goes out the next day. Does that make sense?
Mhm.
And I would do that for if I was building an emergency fund or any other goal.
But where's the savings sitting? Is it somewhere where you're looking at it when you go online?
Oh yeah. So I see what you're saying. Yeah. Yeah, I don't.
think I tend to touch it.
I know what you're saying.
That's my challenge.
I know what
How
you're
do
saying.
you get past that part?
I have an idea. So the savings doesn't bother me, because I've made enough mistakes to know that I am not touching that savings. So I actually like everything here. So a click of a button, I can see everything. What I would do and what I have done in the past is I had my 529s at Vanguard for a long period of time because of that reason. I've had other accounts at other places because I didn't want to see it. And then I suppress the statement. Right? That's what I do. So I know, let's say I am saving for college for 529. I open it up with, not Fidelity because I would see that. Actually on Fidelity, I think, Carmel, you can suppress you can hide your accounts.
Yes.
Okay, yeah, at Fidelity. Okay, so I probably wasted my time going to another firm, but that's what I did. But it was out of sight, out of mind. I saw it once a year when I checked the statement. That was it. And you could do that with a bank. Well, I bank at First Citizens. We'll set up an account with Duke Credit Union, right, that you're not going to check. That's the way I think about that. Yes?
This may be off topic, but I was wondering, when you mentioned when things break around the home, do you think a home warranty is worth it?
That's a really good question. I buy and sell real estate as like a hobby, so I've owned houses and bought rentals and still own several. And I'm sure I've bought the warranty before. The reason that I don't like it is because it seems too good to be true. So I'm going to pay $350 and you're going to cover everything for 5 years. So I would say if you read, but I have neighbors that swear by it. If you read the details, you just really have to dig into that. You know, it may be worth it. I tend to stay away from that stuff because, as you guys know, you get the warranty on the dishwasher, and the one thing that breaks the most isn't covered, right? Or we'll buy the $2 part, but you have to pay the repair guy to come out and fix it, which is $400.
Read the details of fine print, because I've had bad experience with those.
So that's just me. That's very subjective, but for some people it might make a lot of sense. To me, it just seems, how can a company stay in business if you're buying refrigerators for people and heating systems, HVAC systems? So I just read the details on that. Yep. Any other questions? So we'll talk about saving for retirement. So this is obviously the big topic, and again, I've talked about this a lot. So this slide, I have what I think is unfortunate bad news. So you remember the 50-15-5? You guys remember the 50-15-5? What does the 50 stand for? Thank you. What does the 15 stand for? Retirement. What does the 5 stand for? You guys got it. You're paying attention. Thank you. The 15 is this, right? So if you ask Abby Johnson, who owns Fidelity, the Johnson family owns Fidelity, they will tell you 15% includes your employer match, or give in this case. I would say respectfully to Abby, I don't think that's the right way to look at it. I look at 15% of my money. And Carmel and I were talking when we were looking at the seminar and saying, I mean, it's say that, it's 50, 15, 5. It's not 50, 15 asterisk, minus the 9% that Duke gives you, 5. So, excuse me, what I tell everybody is I mean, again, and I'm sorry if you saw my other seminar, but I use this joke a lot. I've never had anybody come back to me when they're 65 and say, man, I saved too much for retirement. What am I going to do? That's not what happens. It's usually, I wish I would have started early. I wish I would have put away more. I wish I would have been more aggressive. Those are the big 3, right? So if I think through this, and I think about this myself, I do 15% myself. What's the worst thing that can happen is that I get to retire early. That's not so bad, right? I can live with that, right? Or I have flexibility. I love my job. I don't want to retire early, but I know I can, right? So I try to get people to think about that 15 as your contribution. And I always tell people, too, and if you met with me, you'll remember this, I say stretch goal. Because when I tell people 15%, they're just like, oh, really? And I can tell by the body language, right? That's not what they wanted to hear. But I tell them stretch goal. What can you start with? This question comes up a lot in appointments. How much should I be saving? People don't like this answer either. I always say as much as you can save. It's obvious, right? But that's not what they want. They want a number. So you know your budget better than we know your budget. Start with 1%. If you're a new grad and you have student loans and you just bought a car and you have to pay rent and you don't have a roommate, by the way, another way to save money, right? Get a roommate. Start with 1%. Then in July, October, you get a raise, get a 2.5% raise, put 2 in. Now you're at 3, right? 5 or 6 years down the road, you're at 10, 12, close to 15. For a lot of people, it's like, I call it windows of opportunity. So and my kid got out of daycare, right? Carmel, sound familiar? Wow, there's $1,200, a window of opportunity, right? I just paid off my car, right? That was a $400 payment. Window of opportunity. Now, I'm not saying you should take all that and throw it into retirement, because you should probably start saving for a new car. But things like that, kids get out of college, that's really big. We call it super saving when the kids graduate and you're over 50 and you can really start to catch up. But those are the kind of things that you guys, you want to think about, when you're saving. 15 is a goal. 15 of your money is my goal to you, but you don't have to get there overnight. You can take time to get there. That makes sense? Yes?
So Duke retirement now, we have a upholstery and a boss. So what percentage have now, or what do you recommend?
Yeah, so that's a really good question. This is another one. Remember I said when I meet with young people, I say, I can really change your life. This is another one I say to people, you won't remember me in 20 or 30 years, but you remember this concept because it will save you thousands. So I'll spend 1 minute on the Roth. I could give it a whole seminar. It is so important that you guys consider the Roth. I put 100% of my money in my Roth contribution, 100%. So real quick, if somebody makes $50,000, round number, and they put $5,000 in, right? The old way, I call it the legacy way, the pre-tax way. That's the way when I started at Fidelity. Well, they didn't have Roth, right? Roths are 10, 12 years old. What would happen, excuse me, what would happen is at the end of the year, you're taxed at how much? You had 50, you put 5 in, how much you taxed at? 45, yeah. So you get that tax deduction. That tax deduction, if you're in the 20% tax bracket, 5,000 is worth $1,000. So people like getting that back. When I did it, I liked getting it back. The problem with that is that the 5 grows. There's a rule of thumb at 7.2%. Every 10 years, the money doubles, right? So if somebody's 25, 5 becomes 10. At 35 becomes 20 at 45, becomes 40 at 55, and at 65 it's $80,000. Does that make sense? That was the growth of the 5 that I put in this year. When you take out the tax on it, when you take out the money, what are you going to pay on it? What tax rate? Taxes. Does anybody know what it's going to be? I don't. Yeah, we don't know what tax is going to be next year, right? No less. I mean, honestly, no less 20, 30 years from now. So that was the old way. It's good, but it's not the best way. The best way, same example, $50,000, you put in 5. At the end of the year, you're taxed like you made $50,000. Step back. Bite the bullet. Deferred gratification. Yeah, everything that I said, right? That 5 grows to the 80. We didn't change the investment, same investment. When I pull out the 80, how much do I owe on it? Zip, 0, nothing, right? This is really important, especially if you're a monthly paid employee, because what kind of money does Duke put in? Duke puts in pre-tax. Now, you guys might have a really good relationship with Duke, but if you knock on their door and say, hey, can you give me Roth money? They're not going to do it. Why aren't they going to do it? Because they take the deduction as the employer, right? Same with Fidelity. They're not going to give that up. So if somebody did a really good job saved $1 million, and all the money was pre-tax, it's not really $1 million, is it? Right? But what I try to do is that if I can match what my employer is putting in the example, and they have 500 that I know I have to pay tax on, that's just a deal, but I have 500 that is tax-free, this gives me a ton of flexibility. So we were talking about where tax rates are going to be in 20, 30 years. To me, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter to me because I have both. So if taxes are at all-time low, which they are today, we're telling people, we're counseling people, don't draw your tax-free money out of it. Pay tax, right? Because you're paying tax if you're not working at 15% or less. Now, if we're in an environment and we know this is what happens in Washington, guardrail to guardrail, taxes are getting 35%, right, in 20 years, pull out of the Roth, right, until they get voted out of office, and then you have flexibility back. But you have the flexibility, does that make sense? So, huge fan of the Roth. A lot of people, so much so, a lot of people say, does Fidelity, make something? Because Chris, you're really pushing the Roth. I only push the Roth because I really believe in it. I think this was said.
That's what happened to me, so it's okay.
Yeah, probably up there, yeah. Fidelity's not commissioned, so if you do Roth or pre-tax, it's between you and the IRS. If somebody asks me, that's a story I always tell, is to consider the Roth. So I'll just read through these. Same for retirement. So make room for retirement. So make it a priority. There's a saying that if it's important, you'll make room for it, right? So how do you save 15% for retirement? I've always made room for it, and I started early, and it's always been out of my budget. So you have to make room for it, even if you're starting at 1%. Make room for that 1%. I don't have this slide, but you guys know this. The sooner you start, I see a lot of young people in here. The sooner you start, the better off you are. That's one of the keys to retirement. Don't wait to 40. People come in and they're 28 years old and they say, and they've been doing something, but I feel like I'm so far behind. I'm like, you're 28, and you have $150,000. You're doing pretty good. Most of the people that we see, I feel like 40-ish is the number where it kind of like once they turn 40, it's like, oh, I might want to start thinking about saving some money in. So the earlier you start, the better off you are. Increase your contribution slowly. It's really easy. You guys, you either get, if you're a university or a hospital employee, you get your pay raises, right? And I know they raise parking every time they give you a raise, so I know, and health and everything else, I get it. But you get that raise, and if you can, what happens to normal people, what happens to the 54% of Americans that spend more than they make, what do they do with that money? It gets absorbed. They don't know what they do with it. They increase their data plan. They bought a bigger TV. They bought a newer car. They bought more clothes. They took one more trip. Take that money, so when you get that pay raise, and carve some of that out to retirement. Find extra savings. I said I do that every year. Look at all your bills. What are you spending on food? What are you spending on travel? And grow your savings. This one's important too, because we run into a lot of people that have, they're 25 years old and half of their money is in the most conservative thing you could do, which is the opposite of what you should do. And usually, why do you do that? And they're taking advice from, my grandmother told me to do that. Well, your grandmother's 89. I mean, that's perfect for her, but she doesn't get the correlation. Younger, more aggressive. That's why those age-based funds that I know a lot of you guys own, are really good because they'll make sure you're in the right asset allocation. If you ask Fidelity Investments, so Fidelity manages $7 trillion, which is hard for me to say. It's overwhelming for me to say that. But we manage a lot of money, and we have a lot of smart people up in Boston doing that. Our economists, the number one fear that they have in the next 20 years, can you guys guess? It's not the president. It's not Congress. It's not Social Security. No, it's inflation. It's inflation. So you have to make sure that you have enough stocks as it's appropriate. Those funds, as you guys know, you're always in the appropriate amount of risk, so the risk gets turned down as you get closer. So that's really important to be in the right place. I have one more thing written down that's not on here. Don't take loans. This is a funny story, but it's a sad story at the same time. And you guys are going to think I'm making it up, but I'm not. So I met with somebody at another university, which is about 7 miles away, will remain nameless, that I met a person, she didn't have a lot, and she had a loan, and she was asking for another loan, and whenever somebody takes a loan out, you can do whatever you want, but I'm going to push back on it. So she had taken a $19,000 loan out for cancer treatment, gets better, obviously that would make sense. For her cat, who is 11. True story, true story. And I'm a dog guy, so like, it doesn't make sense to me. Maybe a dog, but no. But that just, and she knew it was the wrong thing when she did it. She said, yeah, I know, I should have done that. My cat died like 18 months later, and she was in the hole. But try not to take loans out. I said this Tuesday. What happens with the loan? It seems like a really good deal. 5%. It's easy to get. You can borrow up to half of the money that you have in there. The longest term is 5 years. It comes out of your paycheck. All that seems good. The 5%, by the way, you pay yourself back. So people hear that and say, oh yeah, right on, that's good for me. But it's not really a 5% loan, because if you took out a loan January 1st today, the market's up 15%. In 6 months, less than 6 months, you paid 15% on that loan, right? That's opportunity cost. It's not in the market. So it's always a bad idea to take a loan. Sometimes you have to take a loan, and we get that, and that's what it's there for. But try to avoid it. Look at other options, for loans. You have the emergency fund, that's one way to avoid taking the loan as well. Any questions on any of that? All right, what is the one way you will consider saving more for retirement? You guys don't have to answer this, but increasing your savings, we talked about that. Save at least 15%, creating a budget which is going to allow you to do other things. Really what the budget does, and I know I have bored you guys to death with a budget talk, but it allows you flexibility to save. You've heard the term house rich, cash poor. Another example, I met a surgeon who made $500,000, not at Duke, and he wasn't saving any of his own money in retirement, none of his own money. Now, if we made $500,000, you think we could save some money in retirement? Probably, right? So again, just blown away and beyond curious. I was so looking forward to this meeting because I was so curious. Where's your money going? And it was an exclusive plan, so I know he wasn't saving it anywhere else, right? But he had 2 big houses. He had 2 ex-wives that he was paying. He had horses. He had a plane. He may have even had a submarine. He had all these different things, and this is the kicker. He had his kids who were in their 30s. He was paying their rent still, right? So he said, Chris, I can't save. I know I make a lot of money. I can't save. And I told him, of course, well, you can save. You just choose not to save, right? How about your kids, who have jobs, by the way, pick up their own rent, right? How about you sell the submarine? Things like that, But, I mean, it's really important. He did not have a budget. He was one of those people. He was spending more than he made, although he made a lot. But that budget is really important. So, don't buy the nicest house. Don't spend all your money, because that will obviously impede saving for your emergency fund, college if you're going to have kids, or if you have kids, and retirement savings. So, talking about college, I think this is a college slide. I think something's supposed to come up here. Saving for college, there it is. So, again, another idea, you have to prioritize saving for college. Do your research. This is one of the things I don't know what they mean, but I think they're talking about saving vehicles. 529s, I have 4 kids, I have 4 529s. If you go to the branch at South Point, everybody that has a kid has a 529. I'm not saying they're the best, but every financial professional that I know has a 529 plan. 529s are like the Roth if you have kids. You put in $10,000, it grows to 30. If you use it for expenses for college, it comes out tax-free. Really, really good. Fidelity has 529s, but you don't have to go to Fidelity. You just Google 529 and look if that's important to you. But you have to prioritize it. You have to send money to that. Obviously, consider financial aid. A lot of people don't think they'll qualify for financial aid, but they do actually qualify. Start early. So this is more for grandparents or parents already. Did you know that you can start saving 529s before you have a kid? Do you know that? No. You, it's, yes. You want to know how to do it?
Yes.
Yeah, that is really important. A little sneaky, but I'm good at figuring these things out. But legal. I will say that. Perfectly legal. So this is what you do. I'm not gonna have a grandchild. Hopefully not anytime soon. But if I am, I can set up a 529 in my daughter's name, right? And she could be 20 years old, and oh, she's engaged. That's great. And maybe in 4 years I'll have a grandson or a granddaughter. I can start funding the 529 to her. It's my account. The 529 is whoever opens it up. It's not the beneficiary's account. Then she has a kid. I change the beneficiary to the child. We got a 4-year start on the savings process. Does that make sense? And again, it's my money. That child doesn't go to school. That child gets a GI Bill. I change the beneficiary again to her son that she had, right? But you don't have to wait to have, this is again a big planning strategy. You don't have to wait till you have a kid or a grandkid to start saving. You do need to have a beneficiary on the 529, but that can be changed at any time. All right, does anybody have college age kids? 'Cause I won't, okay, good. I was gonna say I won't waste everybody's time with this, but this is really important stuff. This says talk to your children. This is great. This is what I think people don't do. Make them have skin in the game. So 4 kids, they know what I make. I can't pay for 4 kids, to go to, I was gonna say Duke, they're not going to Duke. They'll go somewhere other than Duke. But I can't do it. So they're on the hook for a year, right? So that's the deal. So we had that conversation. The other conversation I had is I have a daughter who wants to be a nurse. I'm like, you can go in the Air Force. They'll pay for your school, right? You can do, in North Carolina, there's a public service. If you're a police officer, fireman, nurse, physician, in North Carolina, teacher, by the way, they'll repay your debt. You can go online and find that information. Let's see. The GI Bill, and including the GI Bill now, I think, is the Coast Guard too. So, you may have somebody that's interested in that, and the GI Bill, they pay for the vast majority of your tuition. But have that conversation. This is another conversation. Does anybody know what this number is? 74,339. 74,339. What's that? No, it's a good guess though. It's a good guess. It might be close. It might be close to that, but this is no. These are all good questions. Actually, as I asked the questions, I knew there's no way you guys are going to guess this. So it's the tuition, the total cost of attendance at Duke. 1 year. 1 year. $74,000. That includes tuitions, books, transportation, living, food, everything, right? My community college, Wake Tech. Okay, $8,576. Tuition is only like $2,000 of that. The rest is living expenses, right? So this is the conversation you have with your kid. Doesn't it make sense maybe that you take a year, maybe 2? They have that NC path that, if you get a 3.0, you're automatically accepted to a state school. Maybe you get accepted to Duke, but guess what? You saved yourself $150,000, right? So these are the conversations that you have. I went to 2 universities. I transferred after my first year. Nobody asked me about my first university. They just said, where did you graduate from, right? Another good example, people paying for schools like Duke, Davidson, all the good academic schools, and they're going to be a teacher, right? Like, to me, that doesn't make sense to me. You go to ECU, where my daughter goes to, total cost of attendance is around $20,000. So that's $50,000, $56,000 less. And teachers we know are well underpaid. They don't make a lot of money. So consider the major. But this is the conversation that you guys need to have with your kids. State school, another good example. Like, I really want to go to Wake Forest. Tough. It's not going to happen. People are afraid to tell their kids no anymore. I think everybody, in this day and age, everybody wants to give their kids everything, and if you guys don't have kids, you're going to feel it. The pressure's on. But I always say I'd rather have them hear no from me and get used to no than be told yes their whole lives and, suddenly, fall apart when they're 25 and they heard no for the first time at a job or something. So, but you have to have that conversation. I think that's a really good strategy. All right, we are winding down here. I think just a couple of slides left. All right, so if you have student debt, paying off student debt, I didn't look up the current student debt, which I should have. I really should have. I fell down there. But start early, paying it back. Consolidate if you can. Refinance if you can. Are you guys all aware of the 10-year public service forgiveness? Yep, so if you work 10 years for a not-for-profit, they're supposed to forgive that debt. The reason I say supposed to is I think last year or this year was the first year, and I haven't heard if they did, but I know I went online, the website's there. You can find information on that and other ways to handle debt. Another website, our website, fidelity.com/student debt. We have links to various other links in there, and we talk about how to strategize over that. I just treat it like another bill. Like, if my priority is to pay off my student debt, like, I'm paying it first, right? I'm paying it first. I'm sending money out of my paycheck and I send double payments, but I'm trying to get that paid off ASAP. Another, that's obviously, this is a big topic in America right now, is that it hinders people from doing other things, from saving for college, from buying a house. More renters now than ever. One of the reasons is student debt, right? Getting back to, let's figure out ways to get through college a little bit cheaper, right? Anybody have questions on that part of it? Yes?
So for the student loan, parents can help them. Is that considered of the gift so we don't have to pay tax?
Is it considered a gift? So I would say technically it's considered a gift. You can gift up to $15,000 per person without any tax ramifications.
Yeah. And as a student pay the loan, so the student doesn't need to also pay tax, right?
If the student pays the loan,
Uh-huh.
no, they're not. Well, I mean, they're paying it with after-tax money. Is that what?
Yeah. So for like my son has a student loan, so I want to help him. So I gave him a gift, and he paid the student loan.
Yep.
So for me, it's tax. I don't need to pay tax for that. Yeah, for him, the
Nope. If it's under $15,000, there's no. Yep. There's no tax. Yep. And you're supposed to report that. I know. So if you use an accountant, tell them that. But I know even accountants sometimes don't report that. They say, it's $7,000. It doesn't matter. But technically, I think you're supposed to report that as a gift. Any other questions on that? So two more, I think. Buying a car. Yeah. Oh, I'm sorry. Yes. Yes. Yeah. So I know we've talked about this before. So what it really means, the same thing you do with a credit card, and you can do this with any kind of debt, frankly, is if you have cash, really, if you have some buying power, you might go to a credit card company, for example, and say, look, I know I owe you 12 grand, I have 10. Will you forgive the debt if I write you a check for 10 grand right now? So that's what it means. You can do the same thing with, with student debt. I haven't seen it done a lot, and I don't know why they have it in there. I probably wouldn't, but they must have done some research, Fidelity, on that, saying that, yeah, there are some some banks or even the government that might say, you know, hey, yeah, if you pay 95% of this or 90% off ahead of time, that will forgive the rest of the debt.
But that forgiving debt will be taxed on. So if you pay that 10,000, you still have 2,000 left, you get taxed on that.
Yeah, they'd probably tax you on that. Yeah, the question was if you paid 10 of the two that you negotiated, you'd probably be taxed on that. Yep, hi.
If you negotiate like that, does it affect your credit rating?
Yeah, if you negotiate like that, it depends on who you're negotiating with, and that can be part of the negotiations too. Unfortunately, I have a friend that's always in a bad credit card situation, so I help him with that. And that's part of what I tell him to negotiate, make sure they don't ding your credit, or it doesn't show. And they will want to, but that's part of the negotiation. Yes?
The consolidating and refinancing, is the point of that to try to get a lower interest?
Yeah. The idea is to get a lower interest rate. You have to be careful with that because, that 10-year, the federal loan forgiveness, if you refinance or consolidate with a private vendor, it null and voids that. You're not eligible anymore. So I would definitely, Fidelity, where that website I gave you, that, what was it, the student debt /student debt, that's going to have a lot of information at 40,000 feet. You're going to want to, dive in on some of those specific websites and find that, but those are good questions. All right, so we were buying a car. So how many miles per year? They're asking that question if you should lease or buy. I'm not a lease guy, personally. So I would always tell you to buy a car in most cases. How long you will keep it? There's a book called The Millionaire Next Door. Has anybody heard of that or read that book? It's a really good book. It's an old book, but a big part of that is, they're talking about the guy or gal next door, and you can't tell because they're millionaires. Part of that is that they're driving a 10-year-old car. So people that drive cars longer end up saving more money. That makes sense, right? So I was walking through my driveway yesterday, 3 Toyotas, and one of them has almost 300,000 miles on them. So it's unfortunately it's not 10 years old yet, but it has, I think it's 6 years old, but it has a lot of miles on it. So try to keep your car if you can. What's your budget? You guys go, and I'll say again, if I didn't say this, buy a used car, not a new car. You guys can do whatever you want, but once you drive it off, you lose 20% right off the lot. The trick that the dealerships use now is, they've extended your term. Have you guys seen that? They used to let you borrow for 5 years. Now you can borrow for 8, even 10 years. You're just paying more interest on it. And this is the same friend I have that has credit card issues, right? So he said, yeah, the floor mats were only $5 a month. I'm like, for 10 years. So you pay like $800 for your floor mats. So they do all these add-ons, and it doesn't seem, it's $6 here, it's $10 here. Undercoating, yeah, throw that in there, $10 a month. But again, that's how they get you. Buy a used car, you can kind of bypass a lot of that stuff. Again, this is personal. I'm sure you guys don't want to hear this, but I buy Toyotas, or Hondas are really good. I've never owned a Honda, but I would buy a Honda for sure. Because I know my experience for the last 30 years is they last a long time. And when I buy them, when I do my search on CarMax, is that the site? Cars.com. I'm looking for cars with 25,000 miles on it. Oh, yeah, I'll buy that. 2 years old, 3 years old, 1 year, good, I'll take it. So I've had such good luck with that car for so many years with that number of miles that, why would I do anything else? And again, you're not losing the money. Somebody paid, we have a minivan. I know somebody paid $45,000 for it like 2 years before we bought it. We bought it for $25,000. So in 2 years, they put, I think, maybe just over $25,000, like $30,000 on it, and they lost half their money. So I was the benefactor, and I was happy for that. But things to think about. You have to think this way about everything because it all gets back to saving for retirement, budgeting, doing the things that you guys really want to do. Buying a house. Anybody considering buying a house? Or another house or a vacation house? Yep. So consider your length of stay. So I think what they're saying here is that, if you just moved here from Durham, from LA, and you don't know if you like your job, just wait. Just make sure you like the area. Make sure you're going to be here for a long time. Doesn't make sense. I mean, I guess you can look back and say in the last 2 years, it would make sense to buy a house in Durham and sell it. But this isn't normal, what's going on in the real estate market. But make sure you're gonna stay there. The other thing that's really big for me that I tell younger people, especially buying their first house, like, yeah, I'm gonna buy that house. In fact, Carmel moved from Chicago, and she's from here, so she knows more about the area than I do. But I brought it up, and she said, "Yeah, I'm from here. I know that, Chris." But I always say, don't buy for the school district. So I have a lot of young people, getting married, we're gonna have a kid in a couple of years. Buy for the school district, because if you're here because you want to walk to Duke, it costs money to move. Most people, if you're moving within a few years, you don't make money in the house after you pay the broker's commission, which is coming down, by the way. It's used to be a standard of 6%. You can negotiate that down. Everything's negotiating. Online, you can 1.5 to 4%. You can get your house on the multiple listing. Whole nother topic. But why would I buy a house? We're going to move here. We're going to buy a house, even if it's not like our final home. But if I knew I had to move to the Wake County school districts, if that's where you want to be, or the Chapel Hill school districts, kind of think, or even different parts of Durham that have really good high schools, make sure that you're in the right area. Otherwise, you're paying for private school. Guess what that does? It takes money away from retirement savings, right? And other things. So that's really important. Try to save 20%. If you have 20% saved, again, deferred gratification. I know you want to buy now, but if you can wait another year or two and come in with 20%, you have no PMI. Does everybody know their credit score? Everybody know their credit score? When you buy a house, a 740 is considered elite. To buy a house, you get the best rates at a 740. So if I was going to buy a house and I was at a 720, I'm going to pay more. I'm going to pay more in interest. I'm not going to have as much flexibility with a mortgage. So that's another reason to wait. Well, if I just pay down that debt and that debt, I think my credit score will jump up. So 740 is the number. If you haven't checked your credit score in a while, you can do that. You guys know the Credit Karma. You can go to Experian or the other ones once a year and pull it for free. So that's really important. Don't overbuy the house. I told you about the doctor had not one expensive house, two expensive houses. When you do that, it literally ties your hands. It's tough then if you can afford a $1,500 mortgage and you sign up for a $2,500 mortgage, vacations are gone, retirement savings is gone, saving for college is gone. They say, this is a pretty good number to remember, 28% of your money, 28% of that, 50% should go to housing, no more. No more, and if you do it right, it's a lot less than that, right? So that is buying a house. Oh, and last one, again, not on here, but just something that is a pet peeve of mine. When you refinance, the idea to refinance is to drop your rate. I get that. But what happens, and I've seen it 1,000 times, people are 15 years into their loan and then they refinance, and what's their term? They go 30 years again, right? Don't do that. That's just bad math. It doesn't add up. Keep it 15 if it's a 15, or shorten the time frame. But one of the hardest things to overcome as a retirement planner is somebody that has a big mortgage when they're 65 and they want to retire. That's one of the hardest things. So obviously the goal is to have things paid off right around there. So try not to refinance to a longer term. Lower interest rate, yep. 15-year, yep. Let's do that, or even a 10-year or something like that. But don't push the time frame out. So saving for vacation. I don't think we have to spend too much time on this. You guys are probably pretty good at this. Get specific, visualize it, set dates, time it right? Cheaper to go to Disney in August, right, than it is in December. And automate your savings the same way. I'd also say, thinking of ways to cut expenses. My kids are about sick of going to Myrtle Beach. Every spring break, Dad, that's what we do. Every summer, we drive up to the Cape Cod. That's where we moved down from. Like, can we do something different? I'm like, we can't fly 6 people, to LA. We just can't do it. I mean, I could do it because I can budget it, but I'm not going to do it. So, just think of, and then remember saying no. Saying no. You want to go to LA? No. You go when you make your own money. But that's really important. If you can, again, I feel bad for my friend and don't tell him, but I'll pick on him again. He spends $3,000 on a cruise, right? You don't know who he is, so I'm going to tell you. He's in credit card debt. He owes the IRS money. He buys brand new cars, right? He's very spontaneous. One of my best friends. So as a financial planner, he's my most frustrating friend too, because yep, I get it, and then he doesn't get it. He just makes a mistake. I'm like, you can go to the Holiday Inn in Wrightsville Beach in August for half the money that you're going on this cruise for, right? So think of things like that, like alternatives to going to Europe. If you have the money and you can afford it and it's in your budget, go to Europe for 2 weeks, enjoy yourself. But if you don't put that on a credit card. These are all mistakes that people make. All right, taking the next steps. So saving for multiple goals, we talked about knowing the time frame for goals. So as Carmel said, short-term money should be in cash accounts, no volatility. Intermediate term money should be in moderate accounts, and long-term money, if it's 5 years plus, you should have some stock exposure. And then prioritizing your goal, that's really important. This is part of budgeting, making sure that you know what's important to you, whether it's the house or college savings or retirement savings. And then funding your goals, we went through the 50-15-5 a few times. And then taking the next step. So all this is I think it's really good information. And I was on a webinar yesterday. One of my counterparts was doing the webinar. That's what she does. She just does it over the phone. And I'm jotting down notes like I'm 22 years old and I'd never heard this stuff, because there's so much new information or different ways to think about it that, like, yeah, I don't think about it that way. So come to these next year. If there's a webinar, listen. There's a what do we call it? Brain chart? You guys know what a brain chart is, a pre-recorded thing. There's a brain chart with these slides and somebody else talking who's doing a better job than I am on that. You guys can email me and I will send that to you. My email is pretty simple. It's like the Duke email. It's my name, Christopher.mann, M-A-N-N, @fidelity.com. So Christopher.mann@fidelity.com. You can just put brain chart in and I'll send you the brain chart. But it has these exact slides. And again, someone's going to talk just a little bit differently about it. It's a little bit more interactive too. But if that interests you, just shoot me an email. We are here, Carmel, myself, Ben, and Alan, we're here. We meet with people. We have 19 locations, so we're all over campus. We try to come to you guys. So feel free to set up an appointment. I tell people, try to come in every year. Do whatever you want, but try to come in every year. Just to review things, because things may change. The funds that you're in may change. The market's certainly going to change. Your situation may change. If something comes up that you have questions on, you don't have to wait a year, feel free. I mean, this is why we're here. We're paid by Fidelity, we're paid salary, there's no commission, we're not selling anything, which is why I've been at Fidelity for 24 years. I really like that concept because I tell people all the time, this is what I would do. You don't have to do it, but that's what I would do in your situation. There's also, we have support on the phone, so we have people that do the same job as Carmel and myself does on the phone. That's a little bit easier. Sometimes you run into trouble, you know, hey Chris, you're not back in athletics till July and I want to meet. The phone number up there, either one, will get you to somebody that can set up a time, or you can just call in. They're open till, Carmel, is it 8? Is it 8 o'clock? Yeah, 8 till 8. And then we have a lot of information when you log in on the website too. Duke will send you guys an email survey. That's really good feedback for us too. If there's something that we didn't say or you want us to say, or if I said too much, you can put that in there and we'll try to adjust it for the next time. So I think right now, if you guys have questions, I mean, we're here for another half an hour. Just, you guys can leave whenever you want, but we're here for another half an hour just to answer questions if anybody has questions. Yep, hi.
So, hi, if we do someone like Edward Jones, for example, for retirement finance planning, and obviously there's a fee associated with that, are you saying that we would be able to use the services of Fidelity as a Duke employee without a cost for that?
Yes, and even better, it doesn't matter if you're a Duke employee. So Fidelity's model is no commission, right? Remember how much I told you Fidelity has assets under management? We make our money, big picture managing money. We have other companies paying Fidelity, and we have our own funds where we make money. Edward Jones doesn't have their own funds, so you can't buy an Edward Jones growth fund. So they have to sell a Fidelity fund. I've seen it. And they charge the commission or the load or the wrap fee on it. So yeah, it doesn't matter if you're a Duke employee, but yes, you could get rid of the 1%. That's a pretty big deal because I've talked to several people, you have $1 million paying 1% or sometimes a little bit less than that. You know, again, we can think of something better to do with $10,000 or $7,500, or obviously most people, it's not that much, but whatever you're paying, like I have no problem with Edward Jones. I love that they're in the community. I love that sometimes they come out and wash your car, and you know they're really personable and they do that stuff. They're a good company. They're just expensive. Other questions? Yep.
Budget creating tools or systematically recommend, or even just like.
Yeah. Well, we have Carmel, can you think of anything off the top of your head? Yeah.
So I did the webinar on Monday that was similar to this, and it was a webinar today. She spent the whole time, like, I think it's a day. She spent the whole time, like, just putting in all the links of different docs and like thing docs. I think they're available on the file.
Yeah. If
It was great.
you just,
So, but I can email that as a copy and paste it all.
I don't know off the top of my head, but if you search Fidelity budget worksheet, but I'm not saying ours is the best too. You might find, pull up Vanguards or Scutters and say, hey, this works a little bit better for me. But any budget worksheet that's, you know, you can update and change would be great. Yes.
So you're talking about, say, how for children's college, like my son's already graduated from college, can I start another plan?
Yeah, so the question is on a 529, if your son has already graduated, do you still have the 529 open?
I'm not sure, I need to check that.
Yeah, if you have the 529 open, you can still fund it. He doesn't have to use the money.
Don't close it.
Yeah, don't close it, yep. So you're funding to his name, but if he's done with schooling, it's not for him, it's for somebody else, right? Yes?
I just wanted to clarify something you were saying earlier. So Duke puts in their contribution, that's pre-tax, and then you were recommending if we're putting in our percentage, it should be after tax or Roth.
Yeah, to the Roth side. So, the question is just on the Roth contribution. So, if you're a monthly paid employee, Duke's going to put their money in pre-tax. When you go to the Duke at Work site, and a lot of people just miss this, But if you're going pre-tax, you'll see the box pre-tax up top. Right below it, and you probably just missed it, it says, I think it says post-tax Roth, I think it says. Yep, you can change it. And again, you can split it if you want to. If you put in 6%, you can do 3 and 3. People ask me that all the time. Should I split it? I don't see a reason to split it. But go ahead if you want to. I think you'll be happier in 20 years if you don't split it, if you put it all in. Yeah.
About the matching piece, is it a match that we have to put in for dues and match, or do they match anything?
Yeah, no, it's a really good question. So if you're a monthly employee, I've used, actually, Sarah, I'd like to trademark this. No, I'd like to trademark my term, that's all. Give. It's a give. So you can give 0, and Duke still gives 8.9% on the first, I think it's $64,000 roughly. You can max out your plan. Duke's still going to give you the same amount. So there's no, it's not a match.
Move it up, it's just going up, it's not necessarily,
That's right. And then
half for dues.
that's right. And then it does accelerate after that. If you make more than the 64 sliding scale, it's 13.2% is what Duke gives you, but you don't do anything. You don't have to do anything for it. And that 13.2% is just on the amount over the 64,000. Does that make sense? So
I thought at one point it was a minimum, maybe it was bi-weekly or something.
I think, Sarah, what did it used to be a match back in the day? 20 years ago, maybe?
Prior to January 1st, 2009.
Oh,
Had to be making contributions.
2009.
Okay, but after January 1st, 2009, you no longer are required to make a contribution.
Which is great. Yeah, 2009, that's good to know. I didn't know that. That's 10 years ago. They changed it, yeah.
That's what my memory is, I remember that part, and I was making fun of me, but I think, keep something in mind.
Yeah, a lot of people come in and I get the Duke match, and I always just clarify, it's not a match. It's better than a match. It's a give. Yeah. Any other questions? Yes.
So the number I call, it goes to the, it's not goes to Duke, it goes to Equitable Fidelity.
Yeah, it goes to Fidelity, yeah, one of our main centers, and we have a team that covers the Duke plan.
That's what I called, they said, oh, you need things, I said, oh, it's not good. But do you tell them, if I want to make an appointment, I call that number, tell them where I work.
Yep. And they can read your locations off. The easiest way to make the appointment is go to fidelity.com/Duke, and in the middle is meet with us. You just click that button, it shows all 19 locations. Yeah, that's easier. The difference is that people, if they're in Dallas answering the phone, they don't know if Bryan Center is closer to you, or the DMP. So you can see all the locations that we're at, or you can have them read it to you too. Yes.
Can you go to any branch, if you're a Duke employee, like at Fidelity right by South Point?
Yeah.
Not that I would love to meet with you, but
Yep.
I'm hearing through these webinars that there's a backup to meet with you.
Yeah.
So
The-
you have, yeah.
And I would say some locations that are popular, there's a backup, but all 4 of us are at the branch. Yep. So you can just look for the branch, and you can see it's either going to be Carmel, me, Alan, or Ben. The trick is if you walk in off the street, like the branches are retail setup, so they can see your account, but they're not experts on the Duke account. So they can help you again with IRAs and brokerage trading and long-term planning, a lot of the things. But if you want to do a deep dive on the details of the Duke plan, you'll want to meet with one of us. But we're all there. A ton. I just looked this morning, and I was thinking, man, I think we're over-saturating the branch. So if you go look at the South today, if you look at it, you'll see a ton of days open. Yep. You're welcome.
Where's the branch located?
It's right across from the mall. Do you know, and you've driven by it 100 times, I bet. You just don't know where it is. There's a First Citizens Bank on Fayetteville. It's right next to Ruth Chris.
Okay.
Ruth, it's between that. There's a building. At that light, if you look down, you'll see Fidelity Investments. It's right there. Yeah, easy to find. 7011 Fayetteville Road.
You said the new people are?
Well, yeah. So we don't have offices. Carmel and I, we go to somewhere different every day. But all four of us go to the branch. So I know there's plenty of days there. Yeah, plenty of openings. Yes. Hi.
Hey, I'm a young person with a lot of student debt.
Yeah.
Would you recommend working really hard to pay that debt off in lieu of saving for other goals?
Yeah, it's
Future 529,
Yep.
retirement.
Great question. Comes up all the time. And again, if you have to be careful who you ask this, because if you ask somebody who's commissioned, you're going to get a different answer. They're going to tell you, no, save with us, and they're getting the commission, right? From my vantage point, if you're paying down debt or you're saving, it's the same thing. It's the same thing. I know that doesn't help you, but like the reason that it's like, should I pay off my house early? The reason that's such a confusing answer is because there's an X factor we do not know. That X factor is the return in the market. So if I knew you were going to get 10% in the next 10 years versus making extra payments on the loan, I would say absolutely invest, right, and pay the minimum on the loan. If I knew the market was only going to return 3% over the last 10 years, I would say definitely pay down the loan. So that's why there's a lot of confusion on that. I always say do whatever makes you comfortable. There's also the subjective aspect of how you feel about debt. And I don't know if you can tell from the conversation, I hate that. I've paid off 0% credit car loans before, early. Like, my wife's like, what are you doing? I'm like, nope, just don't want it coming out of my account. So, which financially wasn't a good idea, right? I should have, kept the money in a money market account. But I just needed that out. So I'm more pay off the loan, then I'll take care of my other goals. So it's really a tough question to answer, but I think whatever you're doing the right thing, because you're either paying down debt or you're saving a little bit more. What a lot of people usually land on is yeah, I'll make double payments, but I won't make triple payments, and I'll start my retirement account. So do a little bit of both. If you can do that. Yeah. And that's why it's great. You can start with $25 a month saving. So I like people to see the savings going in, just even if it's $25 a month, just so they get used to it, and then they can see the fund and the volatility of the fund. But yeah, fortunately, I'd love to give you the secret sauce to that, but there's no right answer to it unless we could project out and get a guarantee of the future returns of the market. But you're thinking of it, so you're going to do well. Just thinking of it. Yes?
You walked on my street, so.
What's that?
Asking the question. You walked on my street when you answered to her.
Oh, yeah.
That question. Early mortgage payout. If I've eliminated all my other debt, and I don't have a car payment, I don't have credit cards, I paid off my last student loan this year. So I have a surplus of money. And that's my next major debt, and that's my personal goal before my youngest daughter go to college, is to pay off my mortgage.
Yeah.
I refinance, I got a lower interest rate, got a lower interest rate, lower term. So what's the pros and cons, and why do people say don't pay off your mortgage? That's the surplus, and that's what I want to do.
Yeah, if somebody tells you, adamantly do or don't listen to them.
Okay.
Because there's no way to know.
Well, my personal is to do, because
Right.
I feel like that would be a
Right.
positive for me. But I am hearing people say, why would anybody want to pay off a mortgage? Why not? That's me.
People don't, you have to consider the source of people. Yeah. And there's some professionals that say that too. Absolutely do not. And I go back and say, are you getting commission for that? Huh, you are getting commission, I see. So you kind of look back. If you talk to professionals that are non-commissioned, non-biased, I'm going to pay off my house early. I'll tell you that right now. I'm foregoing putting that money in the market because that's an uncertainty. That's an uncertainty, right? So I'm a big fan of reducing debt. So I mean, I think it's a great idea. And again, that gets back to the psyche and how people think about, debt in general. You don't like debt, that's a goal of yours. I say pay off the house. Then you pay off the house, then you got that snowball effect. Now my mortgage, which was $1,000 or whatever it was, now I can roll that into my retirement savings. Remember when I talked about super saving a little bit? People do that when their kids get out of college, or you pay off a house or something like that. That gives you a lot of flexibility. Personally, I would pay off the house, but I can't tell you, nor can anybody else. Warren Buffett could be standing right here and cannot answer that question, honestly, because he doesn't know what the market's going to do and if you're going to keep that for 10 years. He doesn't know. Does that make sense? I'm not trying to confuse you. I'm just trying to be honest. Yeah.
I have another question about student debt.
Yeah.
So if right now I pay the lowest amount I can pay, which is actually just interest, it's not paying anything towards the debt.
Mm-hmm.
Is there a strategy there, and this is a lot of people I know, like is there a strategy about like saving, like we're talking about one of these buckets, and then increasing my payments, or saving and then paying a larger amount?
Yeah. Are you paying the minimums for the 10-year forgiveness? Is that why you're paying the minimums? No, just.
No, because I consolidated it now.
Oh, you consolidate. Yeah, I got you.
I'm 40, so
Yeah.
like before they were really advertising.
Yes. Right.
So it kind of got screwed on that.
Right. So your question is then, should you continue to pay the minimum?
Yeah.
So I go back to like me just personally trying to avoid debt.
Right.
Like if I'm paying the minimum, I'm not avoiding that debt. I'm not going to retire that debt. So again, depending on how big it is, how big a part of your budget it is, like I would try to retire that debt. That would be, and if it's like, if it's a couple $100 that you're paying in, pay that down. Now I have a couple $100 in 5, 6, 7, 8 years to catch up on my retirement or college savings or whatever it is. But I would generally try to pay down debt, because the way that it's working now is, would the debt be paid off?
Yeah.
When would the debt be paid off?
Probably